Powerful computers with desktop programs have made it possible for every organization or interest group in this Scandinavian country to have some kind of printed matter for its members and supporters. Of course, the quality can vary from simple A4 sheets to high-quality magazines, depending on the skills and frugality of the publisher. In my job at the mayor's office, from time to time such publications would appear in my mail, usually followed by a phone call from someone wanting to sell advertising in the next issue. I was not surprised when one day I received a white envelope with a handwritten name and address. In the envelope was a magazine called Observer, printed on high-quality paper with a very professional layout. Although I had never heard of the magazine or the organization, it was obvious to me that Observer was made by very skilled people. I then discovered a small note enclosed in the envelope, written in the same handwriting as on the envelope. It read, "Page 16 should be of great interest to you." That was all. I had much more important work-related mail, so Observer was put aside until lunchtime, when there were no other important matters to attend to that needed immediate attention. Page 16 began with a color photo from the famous four-star hotel where the conference was being held, and the headline, "Waste of Money," and then in slightly smaller print, "Sodom Gomorrah Teachers Union Conference." I was interested in this because my beautiful wife, Christine, was a teacher and, as usual, had attended this annual conference for many years in a row. The author described the entire conference as a waste of time and money. He or she, real name withheld, found that most of the lectures were pure mumbo-jumbo, and on the second day they were held for a near-sleeping audience tired from the previous night's raucous parties. It was obvious that the author had chosen Christine as a typical conference slut, because in one of the photos from the dance floor, I saw Christine and a guy with a shaved bald head dancing very close, running his hand under her short skirt. In one of the other photos, Christine and the bald guy were sitting in a booth with their arms around each other, and underneath the photo was the text, "Longtime friends meet again." I guessed that the only reason they were referred to as friends was because the word lovers might cause problems for the publisher. The Anon author went on to say that some of the attendees had been couples at many previous conferences, while others chose to participate in the alpha male or belle de conference hunt. It was described as a fun show until the winners could bring the trophy to their rooms for private enjoyment. Of course, when the booze diffused the situation, there was a lot of gossip and talk of nonsense. Rumors accused the pretty and usually prudent married woman of being a real conference whore who had gone too far when she let her longtime lover become the father of her one-year-old child. There was even gossip about her lover being allowed all kinds of perverted pleasures that she would never do at home with her husband. There was much gossip about divorces caused by adultery at these conferences. Some lovers from the conferences made serious attempts to live together after divorce, but few of these relationships lasted longer than a limited time. In the author's opinion, relationships should be built on a more solid foundation than sex during a couple's party. The author then used a lot of space to find out how much the union paid for this meaningless event, and how many children in a poor country could have been in school for 1 year if the same amount of money had been sent there. The union made no comment. I was sweating, and my hands were shaking after reading this article. There was no doubt that my wife, Christine, who was a prudent wife at home, had turned out to be a cheating whore at this damned conference as well, and apparently even at several previous ones. The hand under her skirt might have been an accident, and she wasn't the only one who'd allowed herself other people's hands in inappropriate places during a party without spouses, but referring to her as the bald-headed man's longtime girlfriend felt like a hard punch to the gut. Even gossiping about kinky sex with only her lover suited Christina perfectly. The next blow that made me count to 9 was that our little daughter was almost a year old. If her lover was the father of our baby girl, this had to be the ultimate humiliation for me, Christina's faithful husband, and there was no way I would tolerate it. Not a single day more than necessary would be spent in my now icy marriage. It was now clear to me why she never had her cell phone on while staying in hotels for conferences and why she never answered her room phone. Of course, I asked a few questions about it, but she always explained that some tipsy men were calling women with unpleasant offers of sex, and she wanted to avoid that. The internet is a great tool. After only 2 hours, I found a private DNA lab, called and ordered a test kit to my work address and received it the next day. I decided that this was the first day of my new life, and no matter what the DNA test showed, my relationship with Christina would never be the same as it had been until now. My next step was to call Observer, where a girl happily sold me 10 issues of their magazine. One of my first problems was not having the name of Christina's longtime friend and/or lover and having no idea where to start looking for him. My next action was to convince a gang of golfers at my work to invite me to join their Sunday golf game, which would lead to a very chilly relationship between Christina and me. Her parents and herself would never accept golf as a valid reason to skip the monthly Sunday family dinner that was held that day. While Christina went shopping on Saturday, I did the DNA tests. Since my interest in Saturday evening sex with my wife was nil, I told her about my golf trip in the afternoon and got the expected result. Christina became as enraged as a wasp and screamed at me. "How dare you do that? What am I going to tell my parents?" I yelled back, "You can tell that nagging bitch and her poor bum husband that I'm sick of listening to their whining." Christina continued to yell, "Rest assured you'll regret what you're doing." Yes, indeed, I really regret not taking this step a long time ago. From that point on, I lived in a very cool marriage. The magazines came in the mail on Tuesday, and the DNA test came on Thursday. It was as bad as I feared. My son was mine, but my daughter was not. It was the most agonizing day of my life. Now I put little yellow labels on some of the front pages of Observer that read, "Name of teacher who cheated on a married teacher with a lover's child is Christine Blod Adamson." I sent these magazines to Christine's parents, her sister, the school principal, the union secretary, the local newspaper, and the library. Coming home after work, Christine looked at me and must have seen that I was in a very bad way, but since she was still mad at me for last Sunday, she didn't say anything. On Friday, I took a few hours off work and went to the courthouse to get divorce papers and to the bank to open a new account with 50% of our savings. Friday evening, Christina asked me if I regretted my behavior last Sunday and if I wanted our relationship to go back to normal. My answer caught her off guard when I said, "You and I are never going back to the old behaviors again. They are over in the here and now. This is forever." She shrieked, "What do you mean?" I gave her a labeled copy of Observer and said, "Please read this and you will know what I mean." She turned ash gray as she looked at the pictures and replied in a low voice, "All is not as it seems. Magazines like this want to make a scandal out of nothing. They can really make a feather out of a chicken." I asked her, "Did you sleep with that bald guy in the picture? Have you slept with him there and at several previous conferences?" "No, of course not." "Is it really true that you never slept with that bald guy?" "Of course it's true. What do you think of me?" "If you haven't slept with this bald man, then he has another lover. Who is he?" Now she was angry again and shouted, "What the hell makes you think I would have a lover?" I gave her copies of the DNA test and said, "Because one of your lovers is your daughter's father. You see, I'm not the father, and that's the worst humiliation a married man can receive. The only option we are left with in this damn mess is divorce, and your lover has to pay for your child." I handed her the divorce papers and told her I felt so bad I could barely breathe and needed to get some fresh air. Christina started crying and sobbing. "Please forgive me, please forgive me, please forgive me, please forgive me. I love you, only you." My parents already knew about my problem, so I stayed the night at their house and stayed there until noon on Saturday. Christina had left a note on the kitchen table that she and the kids would stay at her parents' house until Sunday evening. Upon returning home after talking to her parents and sister, Christina accepted the situation, and since the future was a big step for both of us, we began a serious conversation about how to take care of many practical matters. Finally, she even admitted that it was the bald Harry Brigman who was her longtime lover and the father of her daughter. Christina said that their romantic relationship had lasted 3 years, but she had never stopped loving me. I advised her to give up such conversations after she had finally humiliated me with her attempt to force me to raise her lover's child. By Monday afternoon, I had found out where Brigman's wife worked and had a serious phone conversation with her. She was not thrilled with the news of her husband's newborn daughter. I sent her one of the Observer magazines and one letter to the principal of the school where Brigman worked as a teacher. Further investigation about Harry Brigman revealed that he was unlikely to have been a dream prince. For Christine, that she probably expected to be. He had 5 children, 2 by his first wife, 2 by his present wife, and now a child by Christine. His financial situation was a mess, with the bailiff taking half of his monthly salary. One thing was certain. Mr. Brigman could hardly be trusted to rent an apartment if his wife decided to kick him out of their current home, a home that was her private property. Within 2 weeks, Christine and I had agreed on how to divide everything of value. The solution was simple. She took out a loan and bought the house from me for half of its market value, the furniture and other belongings at the price we agreed upon. My only claim was our marital bed, which I destroyed with a chainsaw and took the remains to the city dump. If her bald-headed lover moves into my old house, at least he won't have the pleasure of sleeping with my ex-wife in my bed. We even agreed to joint custody of our son. Much to my surprise, her parents paid me half of the estimated expenses for the baby girl's first year. After that, Brigman was to pay for the daughter. I promised that I would leave home when the money for the house was in my bank account. Then everything went my way. I bought a nice apartment and said goodbye to all kinds of gardening and home maintenance work. As expected, Brigman's wife filed for divorce and kicked him out of the house. After some time, he came to our town and settled with Christina, who became the breadwinner for the now unemployed Brigman, on whom, with the maintenance of his 5 children and other debts, everything was collected by the bailiff as soon as he got some money from the unemployment benefit fund and temporary part-time jobs in local schools. No doubt Christine had to pay a very high price for the kinky sex I thought she might even now be getting from her lover. Brigman was getting more, because after a while the local gossip columnists exalted Brigman to a real bull who began receiving invitations from curious ladies who wanted to make their own impression of his now famous talents. One of my old neighbors is still a good friend of mine, and he told me that one morning there was a terrible scream in Christina's house. A few days later, she confessed to the neighbor's wife that her Harry had been cheating on her almost all night with one of her fellow teachers. This was good news for me because now Christine had tasted the bitter medicine she had given me, and apparently it didn't taste good. I was sure there would be more to come. I had predicted that Christine and Brigman would be together for no more than 6 months, but now it was obvious that their relationship would never last that long. Because of joint custody of our son Liam, he was staying with me every other week, and pretty soon he started telling me about more and more fights between his mom and Harry. Some of my friends and acquaintances demanded that Bald Harry get out of a popular pub on a Friday night when there was a meeting of several teachers there. When Christine and Harry got there, the big guy told them in a loud voice to fuck off and take his whore with them. Christine was very humiliated by what their co-workers had done. Instead of helping Harry and her, some of them laughed as they were forced to leave the pub. Less than 3 months after Harry Brigman moved into Christine's house, he walked out of it and left town for a temporary job at a small private school. Rumor has it that the main reason he took the job was the benefit of a one-room apartment included in the terms. Throughout our time apart, Christina and I had managed to keep our cool relationship on an appropriate level when I picked up or dropped off Liam at her house. When we had something to say to each other, it was all about him. So it came as a surprise to me when Christina invited me over for coffee on Friday night when I was there with Liam. She got straight to the point. "You still live alone, don't you?" I was surprised at the question, but answered honestly, "Yeah, what about you?" Harry was a terrible mistake that won't happen again, but I can't deny that I really miss the good old days when we were one family. Don't you miss that time? Now I was confused. What the hell did she want? Was this a stupid attempt to win me back? Or was it just an invitation to talk about the good old days? What could I say? I decided to tell her the simple truth. Yes, I miss our first happy years and I miss them a lot. I really do. But I curse myself for being such a naive fool for not paying attention to the shameful farce our marriage turned into when you, the bald asshole, and your whole bunch used me as a laughingstock behind my back. I was a stupid wimp raising that bald-headed asshole's bastard child out of wedlock, and even a poor wimp who was denied all the sexual pleasures you willingly gave him. I can imagine the smirks on your faces as you indulged in your private sexual pleasures. No. I will never miss those lost years when you only pretended to be my faithful wife. They still hurt me like hell and seem like the ultimate humiliation for a loving husband. Christina realized that she would never have a chance to get me back. She had started crying as I spoke and was now sobbing. "Matilda is not a bastard and everyone who knows her loves her. Please don't blame her for my misdeeds. The truth is that I have never laughed behind your back or allowed Harry to do so in my presence. You are still and always have been my one true love. Harry was just a silly affair and a stupid mistake that I will regret for the rest of my life. I feel sorry for Matilda because her father won't pay much attention to her, if any at all. But can you tell me how the whole damn conference found out that your lover is the father of your child and you allowed your lover sexual pleasures that were denied to your husband?" She continued to sob. "No, I can't. And I didn't know about those rumors before I read them in that magazine. I didn't even know for sure who Matilda's father was, but I told Harry it could be him. Rest assured, my relationship with Harry would have been terminated immediately if anyone had told me about him bragging about the exclusive right to sex in our relationship. I said, that bald asshole must have felt like a real winner when he took over my old house, slept in my old bedroom, and slept with my beautiful ex-wife in many perverted ways I only dreamed of. Not a bad move for such a cheap scumbag." Still sobbing, Christina replied, "No. He didn't celebrate anything because he was just a lodger who slept in the quest room. Yes, he had sex, but only in the missionary position in his room and only until I found out he was having fun with my fellow teachers. The only reason I let Harry move into my house was because he was Matilda's father, and I felt sorry for him when he had nowhere to go after his second wife kicked him out of her house. I didn't know about his first wife and his 2 children by her. I'm sure Christina realized we were living different lives, and there was no reason to argue with her further about her shameful pasts. Better to look forward." Epilogue. Christina has missed all the union assignments, and she's still haunted by her reputation as a slut. And so far, most of her suitors have been pussy lovers counting on quick sex, so she's avoided all men for now. I'm still single, simply because neither Miss Right nor Mrs. Right have come across my path. Sure, there were a few candidates, but no one managed to catch my eye. I can't help it, but they were compared to Christina and deemed not good enough for a long-term relationship. Although Christina and I still have a very proper relationship, we even occasionally chat about things other than Liam, but never again about our divorce. It's final.